This New Year's Eve, the party's at yours. Stay home with the ABC for the biggest night of the year.
Happy New Year!
At 8:30, join Roe for...
It's the Early Night Show!
And at 9, Charlie Pickering and Zan Rowe bring you Australia's biggest stars. There's only one place to be this New Year's Eve. That's your place with the ABC from 8:30 on ABC and iView.
It's because I love you.
As they play,
Oh, we made them.
we play too. And as they grow,
Do what you wanna do, be what you wanna be, yeah.
we grow with them. The number one place for Aussie kids to be.
It's because I love you.
ABC Kids.
Tonight on ABC and iView, we look at the year that was on the Yearly with Charlie Pickering. Then the party's at yours. It's New Year's Eve 2020.
Tonight, 10 new COVID cases in Sydney. Our leaders reflective as the curtain draws on 2020.
What a hell of a year it's been.
We are never going to go back to normal.
Victoria and South Australia shut their borders to New South Wales, while the Northern Territory declares all of Greater Sydney a hotspot. Good evening, I'm Gemma Vaness. This is ABC News.
I'm Jeremy Fernandez at the Sydney Opera House. The harbour foreshore would normally be bustling with more than 1 million revellers on New Year's Eve. This year, it's eerily quiet as COVID and the weather put a dampener on the celebrations.
2 teenagers brutally attacked during a home invasion in Sydney's northwest. And what a year it's been, from bushfires to riots, elections and the pandemic. Our look back at 2020. The hope that 2021 had offered has been dashed for New South Wales. Coronavirus once again bringing uncertainty and restrictions to our lives. The last day of the year saw cases climb and borders strengthen. Another 10 local infections have been found in New South Wales. Victoria has recorded 5 new cases believed to be connected to the Sydney outbreak. That state is closing its border to all of New South Wales at midnight tomorrow. It's also mandating masks indoors. South Australia is putting up its walls, and the Northern Territory has declared all of Greater Sydney a hotspot. We'll have the latest on the border situation shortly, but first, here's state political reporter Ashley Raper with today's developments in New South Wales.
Any other year, the streets of Sydney and its foreshore would be bustling. The stage set for the biggest party on the planet. But this isn't any other year.
What a hell of a year it's been.
2020 is coming to an end, while the outbreak sweeping across Sydney is far from over, and the source of the new cluster in Croydon in the inner west remains a mystery.
Until we got the Croydon cluster, we were on a more pleasing trajectory.
There are 3 new cases in that cluster, taking the family outbreak to 9. There are 5 linked to the Avalon cluster, so now 144 cases in total. One other case is a close contact of a previous case. Then there's a mystery infection in a man in Western Sydney. But it's Croydon that's causing the most concern.
The Croydon cluster cases we know were out and about whilst infectious unknowingly, and that's why it's important that the community respond to our warnings.
There's been long queues at testing clinics in the inner west. Almost 28,000 tests were done yesterday, but the government wants more. The Premier is under pressure over the approach she's taking. There are questions over whether the restrictions go far enough and calls for masks to be made mandatory. But Gladys Berejiklian is adamant the response is in proportion to the outbreak, and she wants life to remain as normal as possible. That includes thousands going to the Test cricket.
If there's an opportunity for us to also protect jobs and to improve the morale of our citizens and to keep mental health high and to try and have a sense of normality, why shouldn't we strive for that? And that's why in New South Wales I'm proud of this strategy that we have in place.
It just doesn't make sense to me that we're having 24,000 people who will be attending the cricket when we've got tens of thousands of people in the northern beaches who've been locked down.
Health authorities warn the advice could change before the test starts because the ultimate aim is to eliminate community transmission.
I actually haven't thought about my New Year's resolution, but I think most people can probably imagine what it is. And I think it would be that we rapidly bring this cluster under control.
Dr Chant also added a sobering final thought for 2020.
We are never going to go back to normal. We might get a little bit more normalcy once we have all the population vaccinated, but COVID potentially will change our lives at all times.
A new year, but not a new start. Ashley Raper, ABC News, Sydney.
Life is about to become much harder once again for people who regularly travel between New South Wales and Victoria. Our southern neighbour is shutting its border to the entire state. And Victoria is making mask wearing compulsory indoors to try to slow the spread of the virus.
It's not how these people expected to spend New Year's Eve, racing to get home before the Victorian border closes.
We're going to go over the border. We have to, otherwise we're going to have to do 14 days quarantine.
The government had been hinting for days a closure was coming. Late this afternoon, it made good on its threat.
This is not an easy choice.
Greater Sydney is already closed to Victorians. Those in the Blue Mountains and Wollongong regions have until midnight to get home. And those in the rest of the state will have until midnight tomorrow. Otherwise, they will need to pay for their own hotel quarantine. And there's incentive for many of them to get home tonight. They only need to get tested and isolate until they receive a negative result. Those arriving tomorrow will face 14 days of home quarantine, even if they test negative.
Unfortunately, the virus doesn't expire at midnight tonight and we have to remain vigilant.
Crossing arrangements for border communities remain the same. In Melbourne, thousands queued for tests and deep cleaning began at several exposure sites.
A bit of a downer, that's for sure.
Authorities suspect the source of the outbreak was a returned traveller from New South Wales who attended a Thai restaurant in Blackrock on the 21st of December. 2 women from Mentone and Hallam who were sitting at the same table have since tested positive. Another woman from Mitcham, a close contact of someone seated at a different table, has also been infected. Authorities say today's 5 new cases are connected to those initial cases, and they've now identified more than 70 close contacts spread widely across the state, including in Barwon Heads and Leongatha. Other exposure sites include the Holy Family Parish in Doveton on Boxing Day and shops at Westfield Fountain Gate and Catiallo Restaurant in Oakley in the days since.
Today was actually a bit more reassuring, even though our numbers doubled. They are in people that we know about and are already part of this contact tracing effort.
Planned New Year's Eve events will still go ahead. However, the new COVID cases led to some late scratchings.
Some have come from interstate, and we have had a few who have kind of decided they probably need to cancel because they want to get back home before any further developments here.
Western Australia has already closed the border to Victoria, with fears other states will follow.
I'm very cross. We've had to live with this for ages, and now we're back to this.
With the hardship of the second wave still fresh in Victorians' memories, there's huge pressure on the government to get a handle on this, and fast. Victorians have been told the state's contact tracing system has been revamped. Now we get to find out just how good it is. With the New Year's resolution to stay open and COVID-free high on everyone's list. Jessica Longbottom, ABC News, Melbourne.
South Australia is also imposing a hard border with New South Wales. Only returning South Australians, those moving to the state permanently, and essential workers will be able to enter the state from midnight. People transiting through New South Wales will also be exempt provided they don't stop. Border communities like Broken Hill and Wentworth will be included in a buffer zone, allowing free movement to and from South Australia. And the Northern Territory has declared Greater Metropolitan Sydney a hotspot, meaning visitors who have been in the area will have to quarantine when they arrive in the top end. So for the year like no other, an ending like no other. Tonight's fireworks are less than 5 hours away, set to go off in front of a fraction of the usual crowd. Police are preparing for a long, hard night, tasked with enforcing tough orders and restrictions in a city that's possibly on a viral tipping point.
Tonight's display may be under wraps, but there is one certainty. Sydney's CBD will be awash with blue.
You'll see a large, visible policing presence out there.
Police will be backed up by the riot squad, Polair and Marine Command, all standing by in case of people breaching tight restrictions.
So of course I'm concerned about that. We're hoping that people apply some common sense and abide by the health orders.
It'll be a widespread operation, from homes to venues, parks to beaches.
We'll be checking licensed premises. We'll be door knocking where necessary. We'll be out and patrolling public areas.
Councils have chosen to close parks near the foreshore tonight to discourage people gathering and watching the display. Bridges are dotted with security.
It's 5 o'clock, so Circular Quay and other vantage points are now locked off to the public, other than residents, their guests and customers with restaurant bookings. Outside of this zone, police have greater move-on powers.
Restrict your movements around Sydney. You do not want to be responsible for spreading this disease.
A dramatic night, the end of 2020 with an historic display and a city celebrating on a knife edge. Tim Swanston, ABC News, Sydney.
We have a team of reporters in key locations tonight. First to Kathleen Calderwood at Bondi. Kathleen, we've just seen the huge police operation in the CBD, but officers are also patrolling other vantage points across the city.
Well, Gemma, we have seen a few police here, but certainly nothing like you would ordinarily expect at Bondi on New Year's. And that's because, as you can see, it's extremely quiet here at the beach. Now, there were significant fears that those outdoor gatherings of no more than 30 people could converge to make large parties like we saw at Bronte Beach on Christmas Day. But while it's still early in the evening, it seems that at least the weather has played a role in making sure some of those fears won't be realised. But of course the police are still out in force and they can still issue on-the-spot fines to people found to be breaking those public health orders.
Let's take you now to Kathleen Ferguson, who's in Circular Quay. And Kathleen, just a lucky few have a front row seat on the harbour.
That's right. We're part of the lucky few at the moment getting a view of the harbour on a New Year's Eve celebration like no other. The only people we'll be sharing it with are people who have a special New Year's Eve pass for a ticketed event. So people who have a restaurant booking would have had to also get that pass to be in the green zone where we are at the moment. So there are very popular vantage points around here as well. So anyone who doesn't have a special pass will be in trouble because there are a lot of police down here patrolling to make sure that people aren't gathering at this incredibly iconic site to watch the fireworks.
Jeremy Fernandez is at the Opera House. Jeremy, it's going to be a very different show tonight.
Very different indeed, Gemma. This harbour foreshore would normally be absolutely packed with New Year's Eve revellers surrounding the centrepiece, the Sydney Opera House and the Sydney Harbour Bridge. But today it's eerily quiet. Even when you take a look at the picture from the air, the best vantage points are empty, and that's because the city has been progressively closed off over the last few days to keep these COVID outbreak clusters contained. I'm happy to report, though, Gemma, that the ABC's New Year's Eve concert, we're calling it We Are One, is still going ahead, minus the emergency services audience that was planned to be here. We've got a stellar lineup of performers, including the Queen of New Year's Eve, Casey Donovan, along with Emma Donovan, Amy Shark, Odette, Paul Kelly. The concert partly comes out of Melbourne because our co-hosts Charlie and Zan are stuck in Melbourne. They weren't able to make it to Sydney, but it should be a good show. All of this in aid of raising money for Lifeline and Kids Helpline. The lines are already open, 1800 950 748. Please donate if you can. And then come midnight, those fireworks are still going ahead. Let's kiss 2020 goodbye together.
Indeed, great news, Jeremy. Our reporters Kathleen Calderwood at Bondi, Kathleen Ferguson at Circular Quay, and Jeremy, we'll see you later tonight on ABC TV, bringing the fireworks to the comfort of our homes. Thank you. Well, after a difficult 12 months, many Australians were determined to enjoy these summer holidays. Hundreds of thousands have flocked to the south coast for the new year. It's a bittersweet sight for locals who welcome the business but still have last season's bushfires on their minds.
The streets of the South Coast are teeming with relaxed holidaymakers. It's a stark contrast to this time last year, when the region was in the middle of a bushfire emergency.
I think most operators have managed to claw back at least half of what they have lost, and so there is a definite positivity.
While the summer tourism boom has been a lifeline for the local economy, it's still a difficult time for the community. As people prepare to celebrate the new year, for many locals it will be a quiet night of reflection.
Look, I think that the celebrations will be really low-key in the Shoalhaven this year. There's certainly no plans for fireworks that I know of, and I know that some of the fire-affected communities are getting together to have their own memorial services together.
But there is a sense of optimism about the future.
Nearly a year on, the property's probably in better shape in a way, and the nature is coming back gradually, as you can see.
And for the tourists, the memory of the fires and the ongoing pandemic haven't put them off coming to the area for their summer holiday. It's mostly visitors from Sydney and Canberra, but there are also plenty from the local region taking a break closer to home. They say while COVID is on their mind, they're feeling a lot more relaxed than this time last year.
Compared to last year, yeah, it's a lot better, mellower. I think the town's starting to come back a bit more, which is fantastic.
A much needed boost for a community that's still recovering. Jessica Clifford, ABC News, Milton.
Police are investigating after 2 teenagers were brutally attacked during a home invasion in Sydney's northwest. A group of armed men broke into a short-term rental property at Castle Hill overnight, where several people were having a house party. An 18-year-old was stabbed in the stomach and a 17-year-old was hit over the head with a hammer.
This is such a quiet street and everyone's really, really friendly, so the fact that that happened in our street is a bit scary.
Police believe the 2 groups know each other and may have links to gangs. From tomorrow, over 1 million Australians face a cut to their income as job seeker payments are reduced. The government insists there will still be a safety net for the vulnerable, but recipients warn scaling back welfare benefits will push them into poverty. Here's political reporter Claudia Long.
New page. With 2020 drawing to a close, Rita McDonald's feeling anything but festive.
I know, I'm just going to jot that down, all right? Once January 1st comes, then we'll be thrown back into that poverty trap.
She battles several health conditions and is among more than 1 million Australians relying on job seeker payments. From tomorrow, the coronavirus supplement is being reduced by $100 a fortnight.
It's a slap in the face. They're not listening. They haven't been listening.
At the height of the pandemic back in April, the government introduced additional fortnightly payments of $550 for people receiving a range of welfare benefits. In September, that was reduced to $250. And from tomorrow, the payments will again be slashed to just $150 per fortnight.
We cannot afford further cuts to the incomes of people who have the very least in the community.
The minister in charge of Centrelink payments insists there will be a safety net in 2021.
As we come into the new year, there's a lot of things we need to balance. But primary of those is getting Australians into jobs.
This is a stingy, mean government. New Year's Eve should be a time to say goodbye to 2020, but it looks like the Morrison government is going to continue the pain.
The new year will also usher in other significant changes. From January 4, JobKeeper is being scaled back, and a controversial scheme allowing Australians early access to their superannuation is ending.
The government will make further announcements in the new year as to where any and all of those payments are heading.
The government insists the New Year's reduction to JobSeeker doesn't constitute a cut. But a payment that started out in April at $550 will tomorrow be just $150. And as 2021 approaches, there are still far more people looking for work than there are jobs available. Claudia Long, ABC News, Canberra.
A suspected Chinese submarine drone has been discovered by Indonesian fishermen in waters considered strategically important to Australia. Indonesian military officers are now trying to determine what data was being collected by the unmanned underwater vehicle, which was found just before Christmas.
Are these drones part of any illegal survey activity or even some sort of espionage?
The high-tech surveillance glider was recovered in the middle of a crucial maritime route that links the South China Sea with the city of Darwin. Australia's Defence Department has declined to comment. Well, to finance now, and a sharp sell-off today saw the local share market finish the year 1.4% lower than where it started. The rise in the number of local COVID cases took the sheen off what's been a remarkable recovery. Here's Elise Morgan.
2020 will be remembered for many things, but in finance, it's got to be the downright exuberance of equity markets in the face of so much strife. Despite growth plummeting and unemployment soaring, the world index is up 13% for the year and has rocketed an astonishing 95% from the crevasse in March. Compare that to the 56% fall we suffered in the year of the financial crisis. Why? Several reasons, but not least of which are the extraordinary measures taken by the US Central Bank. The Fed has pumped its balance sheet up to a record $7.4 trillion US dollars. It makes those so-called extraordinary measures during the financial crisis look, frankly, quaint. However, ever-rising virus cases in Australia rattled the few investors who were trading today, and sadly, we finished the year flat to down. But I know what you're all waiting for, the big movers. Afterpay, Kogan, Fortescue and the aptly named Net Wealth Group took out the top gongs on the ASX 200, and wooden spooners were predictable: oil, travel, shopping centres. But what does all this matter? Well, most of us do own shares through our super, and default My Super accounts is where the majority of us have our retirement savings parked. This year, the My Super index notched up a 3.2% return. It's okay given the year. There's dozens of super products in the index though, and performance varies widely. So if you're looking for a New Year's resolution, take an interest in your super. Don't go leaving money on the table. Wishing you a sparkly 2021 in finance.
In sport, Will Pucovski will train with the Australian squad in Melbourne this weekend as he pushes for a call-up for the third cricket test against India at the SCG. Pucovski and fellow opener David Warner were yesterday added to the 18-player squad. The Victorian missed the first two tests with concussion, but Australia's assistant coach, Andrew McDonald, says he's recovered well.
It'll just be a matter of now of what training and how quickly he can ramp up to make himself available for selection. And as I said, we've got training on second and third here in Melbourne, so he'll be tested.
Meanwhile, January's one-day international series between Australia and India's women's sides has been postponed until next season. Cricket Australia says the series can't go ahead because of the COVID pandemic. The coach of new A-League side Macarthur FC says their season-opening win is a reward for all involved in getting a franchise up and running during the pandemic. More than 10,000 fans turned out to see the new team in action at Western Sydney Stadium. Goalkeeper Adam Federici was superb, pulling off a string of top-class saves before Benyard Echebarria made history, along with a little help from captain Mark Milligan, to give the Macarthur Bulls a 1-0 win over derby rivals, the Western Sydney Wanderers.
With all the things that happened throughout the world, it made it very difficult. But in the end, we got there, and today was an important day for the club.
Macarthur next play the Central Coast Mariners, while the Wanderers take on Western United. To the weather now, and it's more of the same, Graham.
Yeah, it is pretty much anywhere through New South Wales, looking at very similar conditions, not only tomorrow, but pretty much all the way through till around the middle of next week. For Sydney, that means some more drizzly showers. We saw them develop through parts of eastern Sydney through the early part of the afternoon. The falls, though, were generally quite light, and it did help push those temperatures down. We saw temperatures during the afternoon in the east sitting in the high teens. Now, there was also a band of thunderstorms develop over the inland. That saw the potential of damaging winds and localised heavy falls. Ivanhoe Airport recorded 17 millimetres and a gust to 83 kilometres per hour. And parts of the coast between about Port Macquarie and the far south of the mid-north coast saw falls of 25 to 81 millimetres, with the heaviest near Wauchope. And two troughs have been influencing the state, but the coastal trough is weakening, whilst the inland trough is going to remain in place, and it will maintain the unsettled conditions. And there's little change to this overall pattern expected for the coming days. That means similar conditions day to day, although Monday to Wednesday at this stage are the days that we're likely to see an increase in rainfall. And Perth, Hobart and Canberra are really the only capitals tomorrow that are expected to remain dry. We've got heat returning to the Alice, and Darwin should be the wettest of the capitals. So for the state, showers and thunderstorms are most likely over the inland and the coast, with the mid-north coast and the nearby northern parts of the Hunter likely to be the wettest of the regions. We are likely to see some severe thunderstorms. Now, in the northeast, we've got mostly cloudy conditions, some isolated showers and thunderstorms, as I was saying, more likely along the coast and ranges north of about Tea Gardens and Muswellbrook. And we will see some localised heavy falls with those. On the waters, moderate southeasterly winds, and we'll also see an increasing swell. Should be mostly cloudy across the southeast, only isolated and generally light showers. Also the possibility of an isolated thunderstorm along the tablelands. We've also got light to moderate east to southeasterly winds expected on the waters. Over the inland, partly cloudy. The showers and thunderstorms will redevelop again over most of the upper west and the lower west, also spreading into the Riverina. Much of the remainder of the north and central of the state are expected to see just patchy and relatively isolated falls. We've got moderate southeasterly winds on Sydney waters. With those onshore winds, our lows will range from about 16 to 19. It's going to help moderate our tops again. 22 to 25 is expected. Should be mostly cloudy through the day, just some isolated and light showers. So for the most part, it'll probably be generally dry. That won't be the story, though, as we head through the weekend and into the early part of next week. The showers and thunderstorms should start to become a little bit more widespread, particularly on Monday and Tuesday. At this stage, these are the 2 days that the forecast models are suggesting the heaviest of the falls, but we could see showers and storms pretty much any day, Gemma.
Thanks, Graham. Well, it's been said before, and it'll no doubt be said a few more times before the night is out. 2020 has been a year like no other. It's been dominated by one story that changed all of our lives. But apart from that, there were bushfires, elections, riots, and throughout it all, the perseverance of the human spirit.
Whatever you thought 2020 was going to be about, think again.
We have all been truly affected by this tragedy and the tragedy of this season. It is a story of grief, of profound loss, of lives cut short, and of families being changed forever.
This is for the busted hearts.
With multiple cases now confirmed in other cities and abroad, this is no longer a localised epidemic.
We have therefore made the assessment that COVID-19 can be characterized as a pandemic.
The efforts of Italian authorities may have been too little, too late.
We now have a confirmed case in Victoria, the first case in Australia.
So together, and with the rest of the world, we face this unprecedented challenge. 2020 will be the toughest year of our lives.
You pick the 26,000 people who are going to die.
So many people in the hallways that are all COVID positive.
I am officially declaring a national emergency.
There may be other passengers on board that ship.
You must stay at home.
Think about how you would like the world to be for your daughters and granddaughters. I thank you for welcoming me home.
Oh my God! The best is yet to come.
A magical moment in Australian sport. Led out by 9-year-old Quaden Vale.
We just won and we've won big because of you.
We are out of the EU tonight.
We'll come back leaner, stronger and fitter.
There's never an easy time.
Queensland is the best place on earth. Let
one country principle. It's non-negotiable.
People are worried. We must continue the fight.
Maybe I'm immune. I don't know.
If you hit somebody, you are done.
This has been one of the most difficult days of my life.
Were you surprised? Not in the slightest.
You've got to thrive. You've got to feel happy.
It is shameful. The host of the Women's World Cup will be Australia, New Zealand.
Absolutely not true.
There is simply no alternative other than reimpose stage 3 stay-at-home restrictions.
I am angry. I am frustrated. Who are you protecting?
Going into space to stay. Now is the time to congratulate every single Victorian for staying the course.
Now the largest vaccination drive in history.
While I may be the first woman in this office, I will not be the last. The President-elect of the United States of America, Joe Biden.
We're seen all over this nation, indeed across the world, an outpouring of joy, of hope, renewed faith in tomorrow. Bring a better day.
Together with our differences, together we are bolder, braver, stronger.
Whenever you want, wherever you are, know the story with ABC News, the most trusted news source. Get breaking news updates with live notifications, plus the latest news from Australia and around the world.
This will be the first step in an ever-expanding bubble.
Go to news.abc.net.au or download the News app.
Hit me.
I just let a magician interact with me.
Thing your mind tonight.
Wait a second now, this is getting crazy now.
Are you from another planet?
Yeah. You are full of surprises.
So crazy. Don't you love it?
I am having a great time.
ABC TV Plus starts January 1.